What's up, guys? This is Kephas.
Welcome to SBA Spotlight. In these videos, I'll be covering how well the single button assistant performs for each spec, what it does well, where it falls short, and how to get the most out of it, especially if you're looking for a lower stress or more accessible way to play. So whether you're here to relax, overcome a limitation, or just see how far one button can take you, I've got you covered. Alright, so let's talk about the single button assistant and how it's working out for feral druids. I have to say that of all the melee classes I've looked at so far, this one has impressed me the most. I've heard a lot of people say they've been having fun running around on their cat druids with this, and I can see why. I always like to start off with looking at the Wowhead data just as a frame of reference, and Wowhead is saying that when on a target dummy, it was losing about 25% of optimal DPS potential on feral druids. And to be honest, that's pretty good. I mean, it's very standard when it comes to melee classes, and when you consider everything that this tool is managing for feral druids, I think it's very impressive. As a feral druid, you have a lot of effects and resources to manage, and I think that's why it's one of the most difficult melee classes for most players to wrap their minds around. While the single button assistant manages all of them, it consistently generates and spends combo points, usually at 5, it will switch between single target and AoE fairly well, and it will prioritize maintaining your bleed effects, honestly to a fault. I've noticed that even if a target is about to die, if Rip isn't on that target, it's going to spend your combo points on Rip. So it doesn't seem to be able to operate with that nuance, and it's also not snapshotting your bleed effects with your offensive cooldowns. Despite that though, it's still managing a lot. When you take a look at all of your optional talents that can significantly change up your rotation, it'll do things like Adaptive Swarm, Primal Wrath when you're fighting multiple targets, Brutal Slash, Convoke the Spirits. It'll even maintain Moonfire if you choose Lunar Inspiration as a talent. I mean, it covers pretty much everything. It even does a good job at using Tiger's Fury pretty much whenever it's available. The only ability that the single button assistant doesn't use for feral druids is Berserk, which tracks pretty consistently with it not using your main offensive cooldowns. It also doesn't use any unused trinkets that you might have, but the good news is that we can easily solve this problem with a default macro. Because just like with your trinkets, Berserk is an off global cooldown ability, which means that we can simply macro it in with the single button assistant. I've added this macro to the description if you want to use it, simply copy and paste it into the game and you're good to go. It's going to use a single button assistant and basically use Berserk and any unused trinkets that you might have on cooldown. I've also added a no channeling conditional to the single button assistant, and this will prevent it from interrupting any channeled abilities that you have, which in the case of feral druids would be Convoke the Spirits. You can move around while channeling this ability, but if you try to cast another ability, it will absolutely interrupt it, which will happen if you're spamming the single button assistant. So if you're using Convoke the Spirits, I highly recommend that at the very least you create a macro with no channeling added to the single button assistant. Overall, I'm impressed with how well the single button assistant is handling feral druid. When you consider all the optional abilities as well as just all the bleed effects that you have to maintain as a feral druid, the fact that the single button assistant is able to handle all that is really amazing, and it makes playing a feral druid really easy. So it's a great tool for accessibility. The fact that you can even add in Berserk with a simple macro makes it incredibly user-friendly as well. And as for damage, I feel like it's pretty respectable when you consider how much the single button assistant is covering. It'll allow you to keep up with a lot more people than you might think, and you'll be able to get pretty decently far with it. Of course, as always, there is a deficit, which means that there's plenty of room to expand beyond what the single button assistant is able to do. So if you want to reach those higher levels, obviously you probably shouldn't use the single button assistant. But for those who need it or want to use it, I feel like it's going to serve you pretty well. And that's pretty much everything I've learned for now. But as always, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of the single button assistant and how is it working out for you so far? Let me know in the comments. But with all that being said, I will see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, Let me know by clicking that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is Kephas. Until next time.